for me, it's really about the listening to other people, not just hearing them out so that they feel good, but actually listening to what they're saying, what they're not saying. I mean, if I'm not doing that, then I can't do my job well, because I need to understand in a one-to-one with, one of these CEOs, if I can tell there's something we need to talk about, I don't know what it is, but I need to ask them the right question, like, what are you pretending not to know?
Welcome to Elevate Utah. I'm Court Brady, and I'm here with Stephanie Geisler today. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
I am excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Quick introduction of you, Stephanie. Did some LinkedIn stalking.
Okay.
So you can correct anything that I get wrong. Got your teeth in the business world at Franklin Covey, and then you moved to a few different companies that you started that you guys took to a few million, multiple millions of revenue with like a couple of different companies that you were an entrepreneur at. And then you became the executive director of the MBA Professional MBA program at the University of Utah, the David Eccles School of Business. All right.
You got it right.
I'm excited to talk a little bit about that. Then you went to be the COO for IDEA, and you left there to go be a Vistage chair, a CEO, an executive coach.
Yes, that's what I currently do. And I would call it more of a calling than a job. So definitely found that kind of the reason for being, if you will. Loving it.
So you're climbing the second mountain.
Yes. Or jumping to the second curve, as if you've read From Strength to Strength. It's, okay, put it on the list. It's a good one. From Strength to Strength. Yes.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
I always text all the guests, and there's these three questions that you answered with. The question that I always text them is, what's something you're passionate about or feel like you're an expert in? And you didn't say I feel like I'm an expert in these things, but you did say that you're passionate about them. And those usually go hand in hand, so I'm excited. You said these three things. One is helping people reach their potential. Two is the importance of communication and listening. And three is question or stories, assumptions, and frameworks.
Yes.
Usually we spend a lot of time in the podcast going deep on your experience, what brought you here. If you like, we can go there. You bring such a vast amount of knowledge to the people that we work with because you've been a CEO and executive coach. I was wondering if we could spend the majority of the time talking through these things, because we could spend 3 hours here unpacking them. We don't have that much time. Are you good if we just go deep on those?
I'm great. Let's go for it. And I'll just naturally reference different experiences and stories.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. So before we hop in, for those people who haven't heard what Vistage is before, what is a Vistage chair?
Yeah, actually, I didn't know what a Vistage chair was 3 years ago. So as I was spending my time, I had decided, okay, I'm not looking for another job. Yes, I can go be a CEO of a company if I want. There's a lot of different things I can do. I decided I was going to have 3 months or whatever time it took on the patio and spend some time in literature and spend some time in quiet, waiting for the universe to tell me what I was supposed to do. So it told me, not in a lightning bolt, but over time, that coaching was the new lane for me, and that coaching CEOs particularly and leaders was the direction I needed to go. So I actually started getting trained as an executive coach, thinking I would need to do this on my own. And then that's somebody in my network said, what you're describing is exactly what Vistage is doing for 60 some odd years. And my first thought was, thank heavens, I don't want to do another startup. After doing several and, being in my mid 50s, I'm like, that's great if there's a model and I can, do what I'm being called to do and kind of have the framework there. So I jumped into it, contacted Vistage the next week, got vetted by them. Vistage chairs are not employees of Vistage. We have our own private practices. And I got trained by them. 6 months later, I had my first CEO group, and I now have 2 CEO groups, peer groups that meet together monthly, and then I do one-on-one coaching with them individually in person for about an hour and a half every month. And then I have some other groups that support my CEOs for their key members, their C-level folks, and maybe some mid-level leaders at their companies. So yeah, lots of fun stuff.
And how's it been? You like it, or you like?
I love it. I love it. It's hard, right? The preparation for this role is very different than any preparation I've had before. It's, You have to do your own mindfulness and meditation work, if you will. And you've got to go into these one-on-one conversations not having any idea what you're walking into. And you've got to just be open to that. If I go in with my own agenda, we're not going to discover what the person that I'm working with needs to talk about.
You glossed over this, but it was completely different than how I've ever solved a problem before. Went and sat on your patio for 3 months, read
Yep.
whatever it is that you do. 3 months.
3 months.
You, looking at what you've accomplished, you're a person with a bias for action. How did you, have you always been that way? Like, yeah, I could go chill for 3 months and wait for the answer to come.
No.
Okay. How did you get there? How did you get to that place?
The way I got there was just kind of realizing where I was at in my career trajectory, and in doing, looking back to say, okay, I've had some amazing experiences, done some really cool things, but oftentimes it was somebody's idea that they brought to me, and I think they thought, well, boy, Stephanie'd be the one who can help bring this to life, put it into action. And so at that juncture, we'd all been through COVID. I'd had lots of amazing experience, and I just decided at this moment, I don't want anyone else to decide what I need to do next. I want the universe, the divine, to tell me what to do next, and I want me, to make sure I'm listening to that. And obviously, want it to be something that I'm passionate about as well. And it wasn't easy. There were days where I'm like, what the heck am I doing? I should be I know how to get jobs. I can, kind of name what job I want, and I know how to connect on LinkedIn. Every time I would sort of succumb to that and find myself at, sitting in my office in front of my computer, it just did not feel good. It's like, nope, that's not what you're supposed to do. Go back to the patio. So I would go back to the patio. I studied English literature in my undergrad days and get back to the on Walden Pond. All of that good stuff, just like, all right, I'm going to be patient, which again is not my strong suit. But I'm so glad I did, and that's what has brought me to some of these other passion areas of listening, not only listening to other people, but just listening to ourselves, our own wisdom, listening to our body, listening, there's stories that we tell ourselves in our minds, but we really oversubscribe on our minds because they're very logical and linear. Yeah, they can keep us alive, but they might not let us thrive if we don't listen to some of that inner wisdom. So it was hard. There's plenty of people around me like, what are you doing? Like, aren't you in the prime of your career? And so I'd have to remind myself, like, just because they think I should be doing this differently does not mean I should be doing this differently. So it was hard.
Was there, you said it wasn't all at once, wasn't this lightning strike moment, but like, what is it that kept you grounded in this is where I need to be?
Well, I'd started what I would call a meditation journey, during COVID. It's like, okay, like everybody, my nervous system was, overloaded. I was running multiple programs up at the University of Utah, trying to manage faculty members who, some of which were not excited to be in person. I was fighting for my students to be in person and, spread out in large auditoriums because they traveled from across the country to come be a part of the program. And, so there was a lot. My daytime students started at 8 a.m. My nighttime students ended at 10 p.m. And I have 4 kids. So it was a lot. And I had to go find my quiet moments of meditation, just go outside on campus, spend some time, with my podcasts. At that point, because life was so chaotic, I didn't have time for dedicated, like, I'm going to retreats to meditate, but I had honed in on who my meditation teacher would be and was listening to his podcasts. So that really put me, Thomas McConkey. So he runs Lower Lights is a meditation community here in Utah. Okay, yeah, it's great. And everybody needs to find their own teacher, right? The voice that speaks to them. So I'd started down this path, which helped me realize, okay, I've got some of these answers for myself. And I'd had, previous experiences, like my first startup, I would say was divinely inspired and, sort of delivered up to me on a platter of like, here's what you're supposed to do now. So I knew what that felt like. I I didn't know what it felt like to like wait it out. And, you know, especially when you literally have no income coming in and you've got 4 kids in college, big house, like that was a little stressful, but I just felt at peace with it. And so I'm like, this will work. This will happen. Whatever it is, I don't even know. And then it happened.
I think a lot of people, I've had this struggle when I'm so grateful that you're here because I have so many questions on this process. Because I started transitioning out of my company about 2 years ago, and the goal was always to become irrelevant until you realize like
You're irrelevant. Yes.
financially and autonomy wise,
Yes.
but it really takes a toll on your meaning and purpose if you derive your meaning from being a value creator. Do you feel like most people start as I need to become valuable by doing these things I will show that I am valuable, and sounds like you transitioned to I want to give value, and that's been your focus. Value was not part of your decision making process. Is that accurate?
It is accurate, and it's definitely by, you know, a process rather than an event. You know, kind of dismantling your ego, if you will, in, you know, through a mindfulness practice is part of that, where you start to realize, okay, all these, and I think some of it comes with age, but all of these accomplishments that I've been stacking up, what do they really mean? And is that, you know, truly the measure of my worth? And you realize pretty quickly, no, that's not. You know, if I were to take a StrengthsFinder assessment today or any of the other assessments, it shows that achiever is definitely in my top 5. That's still in my top 5, but I now have a different definition of what that means. It's rather than, you know, I've got to stack up all these accolades and, you know, be the best of whatever I'm trying to be. I still have that drive, but it's for a whole different purpose now. It's for being the best is now helping people, being a conduit for them to see something they've never seen before, especially CEOs, because, you know, as I've been at different levels of the organization, the company can only move forward as quickly as the CEO or founder can grow. And I've seen that wreak havoc in, you know, different situations where, boy, there's a lot of great people that are doing a lot of work, but it's all being held back because the owner, the CEO can't see their own blind spots. And so that's why I knew, okay, this is my target because I want to have a big impact, and to impact everybody at the organization, that's kind of where it needs to start. And we do awesome work as a group. I don't have to do all the work to help them see those blind spots because the group, other CEOs are very willing to help with that process. So these group days are amazing because, again, I have to create the space. I have to bring the right people in the room and who are willing to be vulnerable and realize they might have some blind spots. You know, they're ready to shed some of that ego. And then it's pretty clear through the process that we follow what their blind spots might be, and they're open to it, and they'll take it from their peers.
Not if somebody was hearing this like, oh my gosh, I'd love to be involved. They need to be at what is their revenue mark? They need to be the founder or CEO or president. What's the profile?
Yes. So CEO, president, owner in that arena, and then 5 million in annual revenue. So my groups now range from 5 million in annual revenue up to 800 million in annual revenue. So, and the hard problems are all the same. They're all the people issues. You know, a lot of them weren't trained in leadership, right? They're the leader now, but they might be an engineer by training. They might, you know, architect, you name it. And for me, it would be like if I got thrown in as an engineer today and somebody said, oh, you'll figure it out. I don't think I'd figure it out. And so I don't know why we expect, you know, others to do that. So being there to help them accelerate that learning helps their companies grow.
So as the header for all of this, you said what I'm passionate about is helping people reach their potential. Two subcategories to that were helping or communication and listening to the importance of that, and questions or stories, or questioning our stories and assumptions and frameworks.
Yeah.
So let's start with communication and listening. There's so many things that would drive somebody's ability and their potential. And you picked, yeah, we're going to focus on communication and listening
Yeah.
as one of those top things. Why does it make the list?
It makes the list because, when we think of communication, most people I think of talking. I've got to communicate my ideas better. I've got to get this point across. And for me, it's really about the listening to other people, not just hearing them out so that they feel good, but actually listening to what they're saying, what they're not saying. I mean, if I'm not doing that, then I can't do my job well, because I need to understand in a one-to-one with, one of these CEOs, if I can tell there's something we need to talk about. I don't know what it is, but I need to ask them the right question. Like, what are you pretending not to know? Or what do we, yes.
Millions of dollars in revenue businesses. What is it that you're pretending not to know?
I have asked every single one of them that multiple times. I have asked it 3 times just today. So they sign up for me to punch them in the face. That is what they come to me for. So, no, they sit thoughtfully, and I ask myself these questions too. I mean, it's a lot easier to see somebody else's blind spots than your own, and we all have them. And it's very interesting when I'm sitting in one of our group meeting days. We will process multiple issues that the members bring to the group, and this happens every single meeting. We'll process someone's issue, and we go around the room to get insights once we've gone through our process, and someone will have the most brilliant suggestion. The very next breath, they're the one processing the issue, and in my mind, I'm like, this is kind of the same issue we just processed, but they're bewildered on what they should do, and it's like, there is something about us not being able to see. When we're the one in it, when we're down in the weeds, we can't see it. We just can't see it. It's this problem that, we have a weird perspective on it and we can't see it. So, nobody at the company is going to come tell the CEO what their blind spots are. It is. You can beg, but they won't. They will not. And you can't blame them. I mean, it's when people have done that, it's gone wrong for them many times. And sometimes our human egos, we say we can handle it, but we can't. But this room is a place where, these are their peers. They've signed up for it. This is what they want, and they know that, blind spots are obvious to everybody else, so we might as well figure out what they are and try to make some changes.
So what happens if someone improves their ability to communicate and listen?
Listening is, they're just going to understand a lot more about what's going on around them. We all have this ability to tell ourselves stories that we want to be true. Lots of times our stories are not true. But if we really can discipline ourselves to listen and not be thinking about what we need to say next, that's an ego thing, right? If you're talking to me and halfway through I'm like, okay, I know what Court's saying here, so now I'm going to be thinking about my response. It doesn't work, because I really didn't hear you. I might have heard your words, but I can't really tune into your energy. I can't tune into, like, what are you really saying, and especially what are you not saying? But boy, I'm ready to respond, but I'm going to be responding to the entirely wrong thing. Like, I didn't hear you. And, it's so weird. Becoming a better listener, now that it's part of my job, we're afraid of space and silence. There's nothing wrong with space or silence. That's where some of the very best things happen. And so when we're listening, for some reason we think it's some cardinal sin that there's going to be a moment of quiet between them finishing what they're talking about and us having something to say about it. And most of the time we should be asking them a question, not giving them some solution to their problem, and just helping them know that we heard them. That's really what they want. They don't need a solution. And if they do, they want to understand that they were heard first.
You've accomplished a lot of things, and I'm sure you're very dynamic. You can be forward. You started as a visage coach. You received a lot of training. I'm assuming over the last 3 years, done a ton of work, these skills. It's obviously been effective for the CEOs that you work with. Has it had any impact on any other relationships in your life?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. With my kids, I've got 4 kids, age 34 to 20. It's definitely put me in a place of listening. The listening's the key. Really listening for just creating space for them to just have space. I don't have to have all the answers. I'm only 2 steps ahead of them in this whole thing we call life. And I feel like I'm more their peer than anything. So I don't need to have their answers. I don't have their answers. They don't need to have anybody else's answers. So with my kids, for sure. I got divorced about 11 years ago, and I was like, I'm good. Slam the door shut on that. I'm independent. Like, I don't need to get married. So, kind of triple deadbolted that door. Last year in a silent meditation retreat, don't ask me how this happened because I'm still not quite sure, but I met this guy that we've been dating for the past year. We're doing tons of work together in this space, and listening is everything. Just creating, being willing to ask each other hard questions. We probably know more about it. I would say 99% of couples after their first year, we probably know more about each other than 99%. And so we're just not, it's like, let's just ask the real stuff and let's just talk about the undiscussables. It's fine.
And I love that you're a coach because I attribute so much of my success to the coaches that I've worked with. And it was a really rough time in life. We were coming back from a best friend passed away, 7.
Wow.
Cancer, leaving 2 kids. Your husband was the best man at my wedding. And your mind just goes, when you're in intense situations like that, goes everywhere. I was discussing with my coach some of the places that my mind was going to, and I told him, but I'm not going to let my mind go there. Mm-hmm. And he said, let's go there for a second. And I was a little resistant. And then as we continue to go, kind of the end of that conversation, it's like, what did you take away? What did you learn? And this thought of having no forbidden thoughts, forbidden paths to walk down was unbelievably freeing.
Yes.
Compared to thinking, well, here's where I can play. And these thoughts aren't allowed because I've made commitments to myself that I would never let myself go here. And then the resistance that my mind wants to go there keeps pushing further and further into that thought instead of, let's just take that thought from cradle to grave and see how that plays out.
Yes.
Align with your value stack. And it's like, oh, no, it doesn't. Check. Like, then the thought just dissipates, like, gone.
Yep.
No more energy, no more resistance. Yeah, it's really helpful.
You just described meditation. letting the energies move through and being okay to experience them, rather than like stuffing them somewhere where it's like, nope, I'm not allowing this. All kinds of problems get created by us not allowing things. Like, we need to allow them. We need to let them move through, and they will actually move through pretty quickly. And so a lot of the work in, the mindfulness meditation space, and, I don't really, well, sometimes I do call it this in our Vistage work, but, there's no taboo subjects even in our Vistage meetings. It's like, we're whole people. Yeah, these are all CEOs, but guess what? If they are having a really problematic time in their marriage, that's what they might need the group to help them with that month. And at the same time, everybody else in that room breathes a sigh of relief because they're like, oh, I thought I was the only one. It's like, nope, you're not the only one. And, you need that processing space. And yeah, we're not talking because we think we're the only one. And, that one of the things that really compelled me to do this work and why it clicked and resonated when it did was, being a business leader earlier in my career, I really always felt pretty lonely. Even if I had business partners, there's still things, it's like, I don't know who to talk to about this. My friends don't own businesses, or nobody really wants to sit with me in the hard stuff. Because it's uncomfortable. They think, they think they need to have a solution for me, and they don't. So that's the thing that, I keep reminding myself, and I don't need to remind myself very often now because I've just experienced it so much. But if you can, like your coach did, if you'll sit with somebody in the hard stuff, and you put no pressure on yourself to need to have any answers for them, you're going to be a lot more willing to be in spaces with people where they need someone to sit with them. If you don't have to have the answer, you're going to be comfortable with the space that they need.
I've been very fortunate to have a wife and a business partner who both of them have been able, even though so many of my decisions could affect my wife. So many of my decisions could affect my business partner. So my minority shareholder in the company. So like there's big decisions that can affect him
Right.
very easily. And both of them have been amazing at providing space for me to be able to unpack these thoughts. And so that when they have arisen, it's not only for myself, like no forbidden thoughts, but to bring them up to them and for them to treat them as a thought instead of their ego.
Yes.
And respond to, I can't believe you would even think that. Is like I had other business relationships of, I can't believe you'd even think that of me or the situation or like even entertain that idea. That was the problem, was that I didn't entertain it. I didn't think those things and put barriers there.
Yes.
It's so helpful to have those types of relationships.
Yeah, definitely. And that, surrounding yourself with as many people as you can like that is very helpful. And then everybody else, let's help them come along to that place, right? Because their own resistance or ego, we all have an ego. And, I think it's us talking more about these kinds of things, creating spaces where people can experience it rather than just logically hear about it is really the key to, creating more opportunities where we're not triggered, we're not caught up with our ego, or when we are, we can recognize it and say, that's my ego. We don't need to lose our ego entirely, but we are well served if we understand when it's at play in a way that might not be healthy.
Can I ask one more question about this, and I want to jump into the stories we tell ourselves and assumptions and frameworks.
Sure.
If someone was to take away one tactical thing that they could do to increase their ability, their communication ability to either listen or communicate better, what's one tactic that you'd say, hey, start here?
I'll share one so in the Vistage groups, I fly speakers, and we have amazing Vistage speakers across the country. So John Colby, he is an improv guy. He is a Vistage speaker and came to our group and talked a lot about this. And one of the very tactical and tangible activities that he put us through, he paired us up with a partner, and then we had a conversation, and you had to respond to your partner with a word that started with the same letter that their last word ended with. That might seem strange. It might seem transactional, but boy, it forced you to keep focused on what they were saying, because that you don't know, you can't start creating your own dialogue if you don't know what their last word is. You don't know what your first word needs to be. So playing some version of that with yourself, just throughout the day, even if you don't go as far as making it be that letter, but even if you are like, okay, I cannot think about anything here until their last word is said, you'll start to get used to the pauses, and people will appreciate it. It won't be awkward. They'll be like, oh my gosh, you listened. And so I think just trying it out.
That's amazing. You finished with that. Let's start with fast.
Oh, good job. Okay, I didn't even notice.
So that sounds like such a fun practice. I would try that out. That sounds like a fun weekend fast.
Yeah.
I'm starting with the last letter.
Yep. And you could even just, with your wife, just say, hey, let's play this game. And through the weekend. You know what? Great listeners can get even better. So
thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. Let's question our stories, assumptions, and frameworks. Can you just explain what you mean by that statement?
Yes. So I see this in action all the time as I'm, talking to people in one-on-one sessions. And, even just this week, one of my Vistage members, and this conversation has been on repeat because I have it a lot. He's asking me, is this really all there is? He's got all the money he needs. He's got the toys. He's got the Rolex, the stuff. And so sort of that questioning the path he started down, which, his upbringing was he didn't have all those things. And so, I get to watch sort of on people's faces as it's starting to dawn on them that the framework that I had, which is once I get to this point, once I have this much money, once these things happen for me, I'm there. I've arrived. And then they get there and they don't feel like they've arrived. And they're like, this isn't how I thought it would feel. So what else is there? So that's, a very philosophical way of explaining those frameworks where it's like, what are the, one of our Vistage speakers calls it fake rules. What are the fake rules that I'm living by? We just have these rules. They're just like the way they are. And that's not really the way things are. And so figuring out ways to question our own assumptions. Here's a silly example, but last weekend I watched the movie Blackberry. I was in the era where, I had my Blackberry, so, great, you get email on your device. That was awesome. Okay, for somebody your age, that sounds ludicrous. You're like, what even is a Blackberry? But it was this movie about this founder who, had really upended an entire industry and was the market leader. And then you watch him watching Steve Jobs make the stage announcement about the iPhone, and you can just see this look on his face, which is sort of similar to the look on the faces of my Vistage members when you can see they're realizing the framework they were functioning under it's not as firm as they thought it was. Like, they're like, maybe that's not real. Maybe I need to change my framework. Another way to think about it is this is more of a meditation way to think about it, but if you and I are sitting here in a room, I'm me, I'm experiencing me. If I just shut my eyes and put myself up on the ceiling and look down at us, I'm seeing me sitting here. I'm going to be able to make some observations about seeing me sitting here that are different than I'm going to observe just like experiencing my emotions. Oh, what if Court asks me a question I don't know how to respond to, or, all of those silly things. And then, as you extrapolate out, you're like, okay, I'm in the clouds. I'm looking down at this building. I'm up in the universe looking down at this planet. I'm a little tiny dot spinning on this planet. Just these perspectives. And in meditation, it's called witnessing, where just getting these perspectives where you can step back. It's like if you had, let's say, a can of Diet Coke. I like Diet Coke. And it's up here. You're holding it up here, and all you can see is some silver and red. If you don't know what that is, you're like, okay, I see a little silver and red. If you back it out, it's like, oh, it's a can of some soda. Oh, it's a can of Diet Coke. I know that logo. And it just, the more you can back out, the more perspective you have on it. It's the same with us and everything about us, our emotions, our triggers, our ways that we think about business. 15 years ago, I had completely different ideas in my mind about business than I do now. They're not wildly different. They're just a lot more broad, and some things that didn't seem possible earlier on are like, yeah, that's completely possible now. We need to think about it differently.
There's John Dewey that said our ideas are our rules, and the rules you play by, like I'm thinking of I like fantasy books, and there's this one book that I love, and somebody comes and breaks the rule, and he operates in this galactic conquest from a perspective of a way that was like, everyone else is like, wait, that doesn't fit our social norms or status quo. Mm-hmm. And I think entrepreneurs are actually probably more positioned to think outside of the box or at least have trained that part of their brain or believe in that framework.
Yes.
As you're talking, it feels like frameworks are neither good nor bad. They're neutral. They're ways we see the world, rules that we adhere by that are, if you think about it biblically, that you have the Old Testament, the New Testament, neither was bad nor good. It was, this served this group of people. This New Testament, it served, these new laws served this group of people. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting and really difficult because, so one thing that I work with founders on is I help them transition from startup founder to scale up CEO. Mm-hmm. And the framework that they've played with is that I have to do everything. If it's going to be done, it's going to be by me. Everyone that's on the team is passionate about what we're doing.
Right.
Evangelize that. They've surrounded themselves by people that evangelize it, that are willing to burn the candle at both ends because of what they're accomplishing and the mission that they're driving towards. And then when they transition, one of the biggest comments I heard is like, we can't get my employees to act like owners. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yes, they are not owners. They
right.
are treating them as owners like you did your business partner when you started is not going to work. It needs another framework. one of the things I struggle with the most in my own life and with helping them is I can teach a framework, say, here's what your framework was. What about this new perspective? And they say, oh my gosh, that makes sense. But getting them to take action on a new framework that will now serve them, when the trigger happens, when the trigger of the smoker happens, they get stressed, they smoke. When they understand if I smoke, it's going to kill me, there's this new thing, I can do something else instead. How do you help CEOs or founders or just people in general take a different action based on a new framework that they intellectually understand?
Yeah, that's a good question. What I've learned is you don't do it overnight, and people need to see it in layers and in degrees. When I first became a Vistage chair, and we were processing an issue, in a group that had come up from that same CEO, a time before, I would think, oh boy, I must have not done a good job last time to facilitate this. Or they would have known the answer, based on the time before. So for example, recently there was an issue we'd processed probably 4 times in the group. And same person, same issue.
Over 4 months?
No, over a year and a half. And there was a breakthrough. It wasn't that he didn't understand logically what needed to be done. I think as I look back at it, it needed to just, the layers needed to be peeled back for him to see it strongly enough to be willing to do what needed to be done, because these are not easy things, right? These are big things. Exactly. Yes, big things. And until you're ready to see it, you're not going to see it entirely. You'll see pieces. I even asked him, after, and he's done the hard work now to really move that forward. I asked him, I'm like, what could I have done differently to help you see that sooner? And he said, nothing. He said, I needed that time. I wasn't going to see it until I was ready to see it. The process was part of it, for sure. So it wasn't like it was just going to happen on its own. So I think patience, and then just knowing that people can only see things as they're ready to see them. And it's really easy for you to tell somebody else what, they should do. It's really hard if they're the ones that are going to need to go get divorced or, cut ties with a co-founder, whatever it is. It can be plain as day that that's what needs to happen, but that does not mean somebody's ready to take the steps and incur all the pain that is going to be associated with that.
Your job is to help them increase performance, get clarity, and take action towards that clarity, so it shortens the time frame from where they're at to where they want to be.
Yes.
Increases the likelihood that they'll accomplish.
For them and their company to be able to move forward.
So my question is, how do you couple, the answer, the action that you want them to take. Sure, there's times you're like, wow, just shake them and say, this is it, Okay, we're going to walk in this office, or we're going to terminate this, whatever it is. We're going to fire this customer. How do you decouple your worth or value as a listener in that relationship from their action based on those breakthroughs?
Yeah, that's, well, first of all, I can have pretty strong opinions based on lots of great experience on what they should do. Ultimately, I don't know what they should do. So having enough humility to continue to talk them through it so that they arrive at the right solution for them, which I would say 96% of the time is in alignment with what I saw coming. I will tell you there's been, 1 or 2 examples where with a particular CEO, in my mind, I was like, that person needs to go. Like, any energy you're going to spend that's in addition to what you've already spent is going to be time wasted, like move on. I have seen a couple of examples where instead of doing that, they doubled down. We still work together on it, but got that person a coach, got a lot of, structuring and a lot of patience around helping them. And they made a miraculous change. Doesn't happen most of the time. And usually the story is we waited too long. I don't know why, we didn't get this in, good to great terminology, get the wrong person off the bus. But I just have to keep my ego in check that I don't know what the right answer is. I can keep asking them questions that are direct so that they can find the right answers. I hear a lot of them saying things like, as I'm saying this out loud, I know what my answer is, or I know what I need to do. That's so much better than me saying something out loud about what they need to do. And guess what? If I convince them to do something they're not ready to do and they don't feel like it's the right thing, that's never going to be they're the ones that have to come to that conclusion because they're the ones that need to go. Just like if I'm working with a friend and in my mind I'm like, you got to get divorced. That is not my call. That is not my call at all. So just patience, space, holding space, and they're going to come to the solution they need to come to.
Part of an entrepreneur group, and we're not allowed to give advice in that entrepreneur because similar exercise will present something they're going through, and relationships help their finance, and then we all go around and share experiences. And one of the members of our group was going through something really difficult, and I was in that, what you're saying, like the 96% of the time. I know exactly what you need to do. And he took the action, and at the end, I just said, like, what finally, similar thing, what finally made you take the action? You said, you guys, like, I had to come there my own, but you guys showed up in the perfect way because it was unconditional love with zero judgment.
Yeah.
And when you think about the business, your CEO, because you want your CEOs to also coach their people, right?
Yes.
Those leaders to coach their people. That is, I don't know, maybe it's impossible to do from a place of like just our natural biases and the things that we want to get to the point, like, because we actually do care about the outcome. And we aren't showing up from a place of unconditional might be unconditional love, but there are conditions upon your employment and promotability and your salary and all of those things. So being a Vistage chair where you're able to be pure and indifferent to your action here, because it doesn't affect me and like I'm gonna go home and go to bed. But with you having employees, how do you help them navigate being an unbiased, helping them, their people come to conclusions, but their people's conclusions also affect them?
Yeah, well, I think remembering that everybody has their own, you can have an idea even about what your employees should do, and that may or may not be the right thing for them to do. It might be the right thing for the company to do, but it may or may not be the right thing for them to do. And just like as being a parent, we don't get to control other people. We don't own employees, and so just doing some of that work to, again, give them the space and, and then just be very authentic and hold them accountable as well. It's like the space doesn't mean like, oh, let's see what you feel like doing today. And your job description will just be whatever you feel like. I've had times in my career where somebody on the team did want to create their own, and we're trying to. And, I had to have moments where I went in a conference room with them, I slid the job description across the table, and I said, show me how you're doing the things on this job description. And they quit the next day. It's, we do have jobs that need to be done. We've hired people to do those jobs. We also have to remember, they are not like other line items on our P&L. They are individuals that get to make decisions about their own life. And so we want to, clear is kind is something Brene Brown says. I love that. It's just, we don't choose between clear or kind. Clear is kind. And, just being authentic with people, and also being clear about, okay, here's what the organization needs from this role. Is that something that you are capable of, willing to do? Here's what that looks like. Here's the timeline we need that in. We're willing to help you grow here, but here's the pace at which we need to see that growth. And not having, I know I'm always in a problematic place if I'm getting triggered, resentful. If I'm in contempt, I know I've gone to a place that's not pretty at all, either with a partner, an employee, whoever. So before getting to that place, just, I don't get to choose what other people do, but I do get to, choose holding them accountable in the places that I need to, being their cheerleader. I can do my part, and that's all I can do. And then the chips will fall where they fall. Some employees will need to leave. I'll learn and grow as I go as a founder. I've been a founder multiple times, and boy, it's tricky. I found myself a co-founder of a company that went from literally our basement to 25 million in annual revenue in 3 years. And I was supposed to be the business side of this partnership. I had an undergrad in English literature. I'm like, I don't know why things are working. I'm glad they are. I need to hustle up to the university and, enroll in an executive MBA program on the weekends while I'm doing this. I mean, it's just can be a very scary place to be when, you don't have all the tools that you feel like you need, but just being authentic. But we gotta do this together, and we have to be accountable to ourselves and other people. I don't know if I answered your question. Boy, I went on a little rambling path.
I like the Brene Brown quote, clearest time. Mm-hmm. Sounds like radical candor.
Yes, I love radical candor. It's not a one or the other. It's a both.
Yeah. My wife and I have this rule she came up with, which is genius. What you need to do this. She said, I do this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to start doing that too. Which was, if something is bothering, I have 24 hours to either remove it entirely from taking any emotional toll, or I need to bring it up.
I love that.
It's been like, oh my gosh, this has been awesome. And it makes it so easy to bring up, like, hey, I've been thinking about this, didn't think it was a thing, but it's been on my mind a bit more. Can we talk about this? And I've imposed that into my work life.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that pit in my stomach, instead of being something to avoid, has just been this trigger of like, oh my gosh, thanks for telling me I should bring this up. I had this there for like 2 days. It's time.
Yeah, I love that. And creating a structure where it makes it okay for everybody else to do that.
Yes.
That's way easier than, cultures that, we just don't ever bring anything up. And then when somebody actually needs to, boy, it's like, you're from another planet, and that's not good communication. It's not good listening. So I love that.
Stephanie, I have one more question that we end every podcast with. And I'm super curious to hear your answer. So I'm going to give you an option of one of two questions that you can answer.
Okay.
Question one is, you can go back to your 25-year-old self, leave yourself any piece of advice that you would like, or say anything at all to that version of yourself. Or you could have a conversation with yourself 3 years from now and get to hear what yourself 3 years from now would tell you today.
I'm definitely a futuristic person rather than a going backwards. So I would want to have a conversation with my
2-year, 9-month-old gray
yes
version of you is coming to
tell me, and so what would those words be? Yeah. Okay. I think that person would tell me to not take life so seriously. I've made a lot of progress on that already. That's what my today self would also tell my 25-year-old self of, like, things are going to move through. They're not going to be perfect. They're not supposed to be perfect. Most of the growth happens in the tough spots. And so, I know this is cliche, but enjoy the journey, because that's where the value is. If this thing was smooth sailing, there would be no point. There would be absolutely no point. Myself back in 2009 needed to hear that, and I wish I could have told myself that, because after we'd started that business, we were at 25 million in annual revenue. We're like, awesome, we're skyrocketing here. Great, we're going to sell this business, going to be set for life. Well, if you remember 2009, you're younger than I am, but that was a global recession. That is not the time you're going to sell anything, and totally disrupted the market. And ours was a business that you got that momentum once, and you really didn't get it back. It was that type of business. So, just had to have a different framework on, like, all right, money's not the object here. Like, appreciating that experience. Realizing the value of getting 20 years of business experience crammed into 5 was amazing. And now, having had that experience, sitting across from CEOs who are facing tariffs, who are facing, you name it, COVID, whatever's going to happen next month or next year, to have been through several periods like that for me. It's like, you can be that kind of calming, stabilizing force of like, yep, we've seen these storms before. We know they're going to happen again, and we've got it. We're here for each other. What do we need to do? So, just kind of writing that storm out together. But the storms will happen.
Stephanie, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been great. I love talking about this kind of stuff.